you and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
The moment of heart rate feeling, spirit is salty.
I think this just might be my masterpiece.
Welcome to the Average Joe's Movie Club cast for our third annual Halloween Movie Fest special. I'm Justin.
And I'm Joey.
Alright, so I don't typically watch many horror movies throughout the year, so when this season comes around, Halloween Movie Fest goes into full gear and I try to pack my month full of as many scares as possible. This year started really mild for me and thankfully picked up quite significantly over the past few days. So, first year we ever did this, we went through all each of our 30 lists, and that took way too long. So we'll breeze through our bottom picks and then go in a little bit more in depth about our top 10. So how was your month of scary movie watching, Joey?
I had a really good pace at the beginning, and I was actually even ahead of pace. And then I changed a couple movies around because they were hard to find or what have you. But I ended up with 20, which isn't bad. There's still a few days left in the month to get a couple more in, but I honestly got a little burned out. And I think some of it was because of last year for Halloween. I think 2 or 3 of the movies ended up in 2 are in my top 10, one was in my top 15 for the year overall, and this year it wasn't near the same quality of movies. Mm-hmm. So, it's, and yeah, I've got a couple that I might still try to get in. I'm gonna watch one tomorrow, so because I'm off and recording for the spinoff. So,
okay, yeah, that's the one bad thing is we got to do this a little early so it's out before the month ends, because it'd be kind of a little corny to do it, afterwards. But yeah, still got a whole nother week of movie watching. Yeah, so it's funny that you said you got a little burnt out because you had kind of mediocrity. I was more determined than ever to find something that was gonna really rev things up. So good thing I ran into a few picks.
I just kind of wanted to break it up, I guess. I mean, because I've watched 22 movies this month. The 2 that weren't Halloween movies were rewatches. So did break it up a little bit. And like I was telling you off camera, one of my friends randomly came down, and so that that took probably at least 2 movies off of the board beforehand. But so
yeah, I was a little reluctant to watch Dune the other night, but no, I wanted to watch that, and then the kiddos wanted to go to an animated flick the other day, and that ended up being really good, so no regrets there. And then after we go through our top 10s, then we're going to round things out by talking about our featured horror movie this year, Richard Donner's The Omen from 1976, which I'm guessing is not going to be in your top 10, so we'll see how it goes.
Whatever would give you that idea, Justin?
Perhaps a slightly lower rating than what I gave it. So,
I mean, when are you? We have a specific area where we overlap and we give very similar ratings, and then everywhere else, we're just complete opposite sides of the spectrum. So,
all right. So, you got your list pulled up?
I do.
All right, throw a few at me.
Are we doing we're going to throw a few of the bottom ones first?
Yeah, just real quick style back and forth.
All right, so number 20, which is my lowest number, was American Mary. So hot girl gets whatever. Yeah, she gets raped and then she
Ugh.
gets like she gets the revenge on the guy like almost instantaneously. So you're like, oh, well, that's the kind of, it's supposed to be like a revenge horror movie. No, she spends the rest of the movie like instead of becoming the surgeon, she like does these like back room body modifications, and I think it
To the
tried to.
guy?
Well, she ended up, you see the guy much later on, and she's cut off like his arms and his legs and sutured him up and kept him alive, and but she's just basically doing like these crazy modifications. I think she goes to like kill a girl because she was trying to become a dancer at the club where the one of the guys she knows is working with, and like he had a thing for her but she didn't, and I guess she was gonna go be like, hey, I want to be with you, but she walks in on him getting blown. Yeah, no, it's just like it had some interesting beats that could have been a lot better, and it just fell on its face in my opinion.
All right. So the bottom of my list, 28, is a Criterion pick, Equinox. So I would always wanted to check this one out because there's a cool looking monster on the cover, and when that guy does show up, it is pretty cool. It's kind of Ray Harryhausen kind of stop motion animation kind of dude. But gosh, it's so slow. Otherwise, it's kind of an homage to like a '50s movie, but it was made in the '70s. So real low production value. I guess the reason Criterion put it in the collection was because this guy went on to like work on a bunch of big budget special effects movies like Star Wars. But yeah, this one didn't do much for me. Couple searching through the woods for a castle, and there ends up being this evil ranger guy with a ring, and he turns into a monster. It was pretty schlocky. I finally saw Hubie Halloween starring Adam Sandler, and yeah, these Happy Madison films sometimes whenever he just throws his gang together and he puts on the water boy voice, they get pretty silly, and that's exactly what this is. There's a couple of homages to like Halloween and werewolf movies in there, but for the most part, it was just pretty dumb Adam Sandler comedy. And then I watched the next part of Friday the 13th. So we watched, what was it, 4 last year?
Yes.
And I watched 5 this year, and I thought number 2 was my least favorite, but no, 5 takes it up a new level of disappointment with how it really waters down all the good stuff about why you watch a Friday the 13th movie, and it's, spoiler alert, it's pointless because it's a copycat killer.
So was that the only Friday the 13th movie you watched this year?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, as a spoiler alert, I'm probably going to talk about a good many Friday the 13th movies because I watched 5, 6, 7, 8, Goes to Hell, X,
Oh yeah, I forgot about all that.
Freddy versus Jason, and the remake. And part 5 is in my bottom of my list too, along with
Okay.
Jason Goes to Hell.
I
And
heard bad things about that one.
oh, I forgot to put Jason X in there. So I had 21. I just forgot to put it in there. So that's my bad. But Jason X is better than both of those. But still. Um so a little few more. So obviously Friday the 13th part 5, The New Beginning, Jason Goes to Hell are in my bottom 5, along with The Night Flyer, which is the topic of the next episode of Schlock Talk. That's going to come on Halloween Day. And that is with back with Carl co-hosting that one for one reason, which we get into on the show. But that was there were some cool ideas, but you could tell how much like budget they were restrained with, and being like a straight to HBO video and all that kind of stuff. And then also in my bottom 5, the last one in my bottom 5, I'm not really going to go into it because we're going to spend a bit of time talking about it later.
Oh my, this slow.
And
Jesus.
it's the Omen. Yeah, no, it while substantially better like as a movie than these other 4 movies, it just didn't do anything for me. But we'll just get into that more later. So
Okay. So my 25 is The Strangers. My nephew highly recommended this movie. It's said to be one of the better like horror movies of the last like 2 decades, and it didn't really do anything for me. I mean, it's just these guys standing around in creepy masks. I mean, there's a bit of like stuff going on kind of towards the end, but you never really find out anything about why what they're doing. And I guess that's supposed to be creepy, but it didn't do anything for me. I mean, Liv Tyler's like the main like lady person we're supposed to be like hoping like survives all this thing, and yeah, I found it pretty disappointing, pretty dull overall. Yeah, Creepy Mask the movie, wasn't impressed with The Strangers. The next one was The Most Dangerous Game. This is one of the Criterions. An interesting fact about this movie, it was shot on the same lot at the same time as King Kong. So you can kind of see that when they venture out into the jungle. This is basically the classic story of these people crash land at this island, and this wealthy guy's like, "Oh, you're gonna go hunting with me," and they end up becoming the prey or whatever. And so there's some cool like, this is definitely I think inspired Predator some, because the guy like rigs up some traps that are like exactly out of that first Predator movie, which is pretty cool. It's really, really short. It's barely an hour. So it's solid in its own right, but, for a Halloween list, it ranks pretty low for me. I watched Godzilla Raids Again. And yeah, so we're already getting into versus territory as they spot a new Godzilla, because the first one did die. And he's facing off against a dinosaur. And there's some cool aspects to this, but overall, it's your typical Godzilla stuff. And I got a lot of these movies to go. It doesn't look like it's going to get very fresh from here, but we'll see. The Addams Family 2, went and saw this with the kids. Got it on demand from Prime, thankfully. Didn't have to dish out too much money for this guy. I was kind of hoping, this animated Addams Family would just kind of chill in their house and do, Addams Family kind of stuff. Since like they moved to a new house in the first one. But no, they go on a road trip across the United States, and we get to see them in all kinds of fish out of water situations. And it actually borrows the plot from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. And I mean, it has some fun Addams Family moments there. They try to get you to believe that Wednesday is not an Addams, which, I mean, she looks exactly like Morticia, so of course she's an Addams. So Addams Family 2, definitely not as good as the first one, but it's okay. And the last one, I'll throw two more at you because these are shorts. I watched Bewitched Bunny on HBO Max. This is one of the Looney Tunes episodes that has the witch. I want to say her name's Myrtle. I don't know. She's in like 3 different Looney Tunes episodes. I actually forget what this is about. I mean, it's only 6 minutes long, but yeah, all the witch episodes of Looney Tunes are a good time. And then there's this one Letterboxd user who had this thing called the Skeleton Dance by Disney all across his like favorites. So I was like, hey, I'll check out this Skeleton Dance, and this is pretty cool. This was made in the 1920s. It was made in 1929, and it's a really, really cool black and white animated basically musical short about just going to a graveyard, and these skeletons start doing like kind of this percussive dance, almost like, I don't know, like stomp or something. And it's a pretty good time. So what you got? Where you at now in your list?
Okay, so first off, it's you're talking about The Strangers. One that was actually filmed pretty close to where I live.
Okay.
At least parts of it, yes. And then it's been a long time since I've seen it. I do remember it was supposed to be like this crazy, scary movie, and I don't really remember very much about it. I remember thinking it was very okay at the time, but I was much younger. But I do find like that kind of movie where it's real people who may or may not have any reasoning for what they're doing other than chaos or horror. I find those to be much better and just much scarier typically than Jason or Freddy.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason that Halloween, the OG one, is so good, and part of the reason why the new one is not so good. But I have a feeling we're going to get into that debate here in a little bit. So I guess we'll just go ahead and go to number 10, lest we're going to go through everything, which I thought we weren't going to do. So I'm just going to go to 10. Number 10
I mean, I think Yeah, I guess we're probably talking about these the same way we'll do top 10, but yeah, let's see how it goes.
Um, so number 10 is a movie called Revenge. I'm pretty sure it's either a Shudder exclusive or a Shudder original.
I remember when it came out. I still haven't seen it. It's out takes place out in the desert, right?
It does take place out in the desert, but like it is number 10 because, well, something had to be number 10. So like I wrote in my review, like you got a final girl that you can root for, but outside of that, it's a little bit ridiculous. So this movie is pretty, for the most part, based in realism, but there's a scene I won't say like very early, like in the first 10 minutes or anything, but it's still pretty early into the movie that right after like the big conflict starts.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets pushed off a cliff.
Damn.
And lands on a broken tree impaled.
Ouch.
She's dead. Like she's dead, but no, she's not dead. She lives. So now she's impossible to kill. They do some cool stuff throughout the movie, and of course the main girl looks good. It's got a cool aesthetic with bright colors and stuff to pop against the desert and other places. Like if you're looking at the movie poster, like the name is written in all in like hot pink or neon pink, and she's got these big star pink earrings. And
you said this one's style over substance, right?
Yeah, because there's some spots where they try to do substance, like with some camera angles and stuff, and like some sounds, and I just think it fell flat, just me personally. But it's not bad by any means. It's just I don't think it's very good. But the end is very, very violent and graphic, and so I mean, if you've got Shudder, I mean, it's you can check it out. I just don't think you need to expect it to be, like highbrow. Not highbrow because for horror movies, but like something really good. Like I just think it's kind of middle of the road.
What's the benefit of getting Shudder? I've never actually had that service.
Do you like horror movies?
Yeah.
It's a horror movie streaming service.
Well, yeah. I mean, do they focus more on like where do they focus? Like more like the schlocky stuff no one's ever heard of, or?
Well, so they have schlocky stuff, and then they have big budget stuff. They have their own stuff. They have classics. So now if you're looking for like legitimately a lot of schlock, I think Arrow is probably your best bet. The Arrow streaming service, which is where my next two movies will have come from. But yeah, no, they have a lot of like random stuff on there. But like, I don't know if you remember earlier this year, I watched a movie called I think we talked about it on the last episode actually, the Slime Ball Bowl-orama or something like that. Sorority Girl and the Slime Ball. Yeah, that was on Shudder. Which was it was an 80s slasher film, like a very low budget one. So they just kind of run the gamut on horror movies. I imagine it's the horror movie version of Hi-Ya, which I want to get but don't have yet. But that's only like $3, and that's if you want to watch Asian martial arts movies. Or Asian action movies. Like it's like I need to get it because it's in my wheelhouse.
All right, so back to me.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I checked out Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. This title always really intrigued me, so wanted to check it out. It goes back to the main girl from the previous film. Unfortunately, she's the worst actor in this movie. It takes place in like a mental asylum where these kids are all like suicidal, which kind of turned me off. But the reason they are is because they're not getting any sleep, because they go to sleep, Freddy's gonna go after them. I guess the worst part about this movie is it's made for TV quality. Not the greatest acting. Freddy has some cool moments throughout, so yeah, it's not ridiculous yet, because I think at some point the series gets really, really campy. So yeah, I enjoy seeing Freddy turn into different things. I actually think he's probably one of my favorite like classic horror slashers, just because like the look of him kind of freaks me out, so I kind of admire that. But 3, it's definitely not number 1. Number 1 is the top bill in my opinion still. I saw an 80s classic, Reanimator. which I heard is this great horror comedy. It's kind of mild on the comedy, I would say. I mean, there's some aspects of it that are pretty goofy. I mean, like, he brings a cat back to life, so that's pretty silly. It's essentially the Frankenstein story, just kind of in a modern context and kind of a horror comedy setting. It has its moments, but it didn't really live up to my expectations. I checked out the Criterion Fiend Without a Face, which started off really slow because, like, essentially, like, the aliens or whatever that are attacking people are invisible. So it's just like people like grabbing their neck, being like, "Oh yeah," and then they die. But then, like, in the last third of the movie, like, they finally, like, you can see them and they look kind of like the little like face huggers from Alien. And then it gets actually pretty badass. And there's a really good third act to it. It's that like, let's see, when did this one come out? This one came out in 58. Yeah, so it's definitely the atomic age of horror. They mentioned, like, this, you know, like, there's an Air Force base and an atomic, a nuclear plant that everyone's pissed about being there. Fiend Without a Face, not too bad. I finally watched, so the Criterion Channel had this movie I've been looking at for a long time, Cul-de-sac, which I always kind of envisioned as, you know, like, whenever you live in a neighborhood, it's just like the dead end with, like, a circle or whatever. But essentially a cul-de-sac means, like, anywhere, any nowhere road. And so this was done by Roman Polanski. This is one of his second English film. And so it's a home invasion, but it's a really quirky one because essentially, like, the people, so these people live on an island with a castle, and they're pretty eccentric. And the guy's kind of emasculated because it's like kind of a nerdy guy with glasses, and he's married to this French hot babe. And yeah, so this bigger guy, you know, they had a bungled robbery, and so he ends up on this island, and, you know, he pushes them around, and they pretty much do exactly what he says. And then they have some unwelcome company come in a little later, and they basically like the guy that's home invaded them more than their company. So it's that kind of strange dynamic going on there with cul-de-sacs. So interesting.
American Werewolf in London. And in my letterbox review, I was more like an American Boerewolf in London, or a boring werewolf in London, or something. Like, the effect of the werewolf once he's finally there at the end is cool, but the rest of the movie is boring. I don't recommend it. I just do something else. Number 14. We'll come back and we'll circle to that one because I have a feeling that one's in your top 10. Number 13 is Llamageddon, which is a very low budget schlocky horror movie. That is the subject of my current episode of Schlock Talk, which is episode 2, featuring my friend Jenna. And so it's about an alien llama with laser beam eyes. So if that doesn't hook you in, I don't know what will. Number 12 is the third movie in a trilogy that I watched this year. I think it's just called the Vampire Doll Trilogy, but this is the Evil of Dracula. Like, this was closer to the schlockiness and silliness that I kind of expected out of the first two. And it definitely it wasn't bad or anything, but it just didn't hit like the first two. There's not really anything too much to say. It's a Japanese movie in the 70s about vampires. From what Carl said, they're all kind of like made like Hammer movies, where they're supposed to be like modern remakes of the classics, but, you know, obviously modern to the 70s. And then number 11 is the movie called Schlock, which is my first episode of Schlock Talk. So I
heard that one.
I got two of those, well, 3 of those out this month, since the third one will come on the 31st. But this one is just about a giant ape, except for it's a man in a suit, but he's an ape, and he's like the lost the lost link to the prehistoric world, and he goes around and he's just murdering people, and it's dumb. It's real dumb. But the director went on to do some other pretty well-known stuff, like American Werewolf in London. So yeah, that puts me back to 10 or to 9.
Right. So my sister visited me the other weekend, and she insisted we watch Maleficent. I know it's not necessarily a horror movie, but it kind of has kind of a Halloween vibe to it.
Neither is Godzilla, but you list that too.
All right, so Maleficent, definitely reminiscent of Lord of the Rings and like Avatar. I like the classic moments of Sleeping Beauty, shown in live action form with Angelina Jolie. They throw some really weird twists in there and kind of change thing up with Maleficent being the understood one, misunderstood one, and the king being the evil one. So those parts kind of turned me off, but otherwise it was all right. Interested to see what the sequel does. Unfortunately, Army of Darkness is down at number 4. I was really, really digging this movie to start off with. I was like, whoa, there's Ash is back. Some pretty badass moments. But gosh, this movie gets so cheesy with like these little ashes and like whenever he ventures off on his own to find the Book of the Dead, it just really drags for me. The end battle's pretty fun. But I'm an Evil 2 guy, so Evil Dead 2 guy, so I'll leave it at that. Red Eye is a Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams thriller, and I had been wanting to watch this for the longest time. This was directed by Wes Craven, and yeah, this is a pretty cool bottle movie about these two people on sitting next to each other on a plane, and I'll keep it at that. It's a pretty decent thriller. Number 12, yeah.
I wish I would have known that. That's a movie I've always wanted to watch and have never watched.
And that has your girl in it, right?
It does have my girl in it, but also, like, we could have just made that up. We could have had like a Halloween episode of that, and then Anywho, continue along. Number 12.
Number 12 is the 2018 Halloween. It was all right. It was basically reminiscent of the original. I had the whole Jamie Lee Curtis traps things at the end. I don't remember a whole lot about this because the sequel just fills my mind with so many more good memories. So I've moved on. 11, which is
incorrectly, but continue.
11 is the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. This was surprisingly really good. The 70s one's good too, but this is really clever because it's the classic story of like the pod people like invading like the population, but the acting's really good, so like you really don't know who to trust and whatnot, and the climax is really good with the main character and the really hot chick trying to get away from the pod people, and basically all that needs to happen is they have to fall asleep and they get switched, and it's pretty thrilling. And I was really impressed for it being, a 50s horror movie that definitely holds up as a timeless classic in my opinion. So I'm in my top 10.
All right, number 10 for you because I've already done number 10.
I wanted to move The Good Son up here. This is what Macaulay Culkin did after Home Alone, where he became a fucking crazy ass kid killer. It kind of has a made-for-TV like feel to it, but at the same time, you really get the essence of like a nurture versus nature kind of feel. Because his parents are great, but man, this kid is straight up evil, like shooting dogs and dumping like sandbags over like overpasses to make people crash and stuff. He's just ruthless. And the fucking kid, like, he drowns his baby brother and then tries to make his little sister die in like over this the ice skating rink because like he throws her over the thin ice or whatever. I watched it with my older son. My middle son is a little strange with his temperament sometimes, so I wanted to keep him as far away from this movie as possible. This is a really solid movie. Great acting from Culkin and Elijah Wood, who plays the hero, but has a lot of really low budget aspects to it too, so it's kind of a mixed bag, but overall pretty cool flick. All right, what's your number 9?
So I'm gonna do 9 and 8 to get kind of together since they go together, and that is the other two movies in that trilogy I was talking about: The Vampire Doll and The Lake of Dracula. So like I said, Japanese vampire movies. In the first one, dude is gonna go meet. He's been out of like in America on business, and he comes back and he goes to see his girlfriend, and she's dead. But then she's a vampire and she kind of looks like a doll, and they just run around doing a bunch of Dracula stuff. And I mean, it's good, and it kind of blends in with Lake of Dracula. Like, I don't even really remember what that plot was in Lake of Dracula. Well, a girl who lives near a lake, and then the Dracula, the vampire doll girl, is back. They're basically running around doing a bunch of Dracula shit, but in Japan. Is like, I know that's not a very good description, but it has been a little while since I watched them, and they, like I said, we watched, Vampire Doll one night, Lake of Dracula one night, Evil of Dracula the next night, and they all just kind of blurred together a little bit.
Totally understandable. No worries.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 9, I was quite excited to see that M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's Old got available to streaming. So yeah, I checked this one out. This is essentially, people get, stuck on a beach and they start turning old. A lot of cool aspects to this movie in terms of like, just seeing. I love these situational movies. Kind of like, I mean, we talked about Cube a few years ago. It's kind of that deal where you get these people of different walks of life in this like crazy situation where people are dying and you see how they react. I guess I won't spoil the movie since not everyone's seen it. But what would I would say about Old? Yeah, I've always enjoyed Shyamalan. I haven't really watched some of his worst stuff. Like, I thought, I think it's called The Visit, where the kids go to the grandparents' house. I thought that was pretty solid. I watched that last year. Old, has some cool, thrilling moments, pretty crazy moments. Because these two kids are like 4 and 6 years old, and all of a sudden they become teenagers and they get pregnant. So that's a little questionable. But yeah, Old's it's an interesting ride with these people thinking they're going to a resort, and they end up aging quite rapidly. So, what's your number 8?
Oh, I did 9 and 8 together, so you can do 8.
All right. I saw Venom 2. Let There Be Carnage.
Having not seen this movie, I need you to back up. That is a fucking action movie, Justin.
But it's very it's carnage. There's horror in it.
If we didn't live 2 hours apart, I would slap you in the back of the head right now.
What have you been?
You know what? Okay, well, hold on. Then I need to change my whole list because I'm gonna put Thor at Ragnarok at number 1 because there's a big flaming monster with a skull for a head coming out of a mountain and destroying Asgard.
Oh, come on. Carnage versus Venom, that's kind of horror, right?
No,
it came out in
badass.
October.
That's badass. That's not horror. That's not horror, friend. That's not horror. Anyway.
You're all kinds of upset with me.
Oh, you should be glad that Carl was sick and that he's not here on this podcast with us. He would be biting your head off, and I do mean quite literally. So, anywho, continue.
Venom 2 was quite enjoyable. Not the peak of movie making, but quite fun because I've always wanted to see Venom and Carnage go head to head, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Oh, I have no doubt that I will enjoy it. I want to see it, but I would not have put it on this list. I'm gonna kind of double up again. I'm gonna do Friday the 13th Part 6. Jason Lives at 7, and Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood at 6. So again, they kind of all blend together. I think 6 is where he gets shot with a lightning bolt and comes back and is officially a zombie. That sounds right. And if it wasn't in 6, then it was in 7. I'm pretty sure it was in 6.
And they kind of allude to that in 5, right? But they don't quite go that far.
Yeah, I guess they're like.
But it's because it's a dream or whatever.
Yeah, something. And then, so some people are like fucking about at his grave, and then he gets struck by lightning and comes back to life and kills them. So of course, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Um, so especially for the Friday the 13th franchise, like these were not big budget movies overall, and you definitely can tell. Like, yeah, they did well at the box office and all of that, but they didn't have super crazy budgets or anything. They're very schlocky. Um, so yeah, there was number 7 and number 6, which conveniently are backwards. Number 7, my 7th ranked one is number 6, and my 6th ranked one is number 7. Ha ha ha.
Were you disappointed with Old being on my list?
That sounds like it at least could be suspense and horror, like that suspense horror crossover, since
Okay.
suspense movies are basically horror movies. So no, that, and I haven't seen it, but I mean, it's M. Night Shyamalan, so I mean, there was some very big twist at the end that was probably telegraphed and also probably very boring. Um,
All right, so I don't think you'll be. I won't throw any more cheats at your way because I guess I thought Carnage Venom was a little, sidelined, but I didn't think you'd react that negatively. My humble apologies. I didn't realize you thought of me as a fraud that way.
I mean, you're not a fraud. You made a mistake. We all make mistakes. It's okay.
All right,
I
so
mean-
mine. Okay.
I don't think it's going to be the last time I'm going to get amped up in this countdown, because I keep waiting for you to put a specific movie in here and you haven't yet. And yeah, we're gonna have a conversation, I think, when that happens. We probably could have just had a whole separate episode about that specific movie. We probably should have, but oh well.
All right, number 7 is Quite On. This is a Criterion Japanese movie. I'd like to watch Jikoku and that other one you watched last year. Was it Carry On 2 or something?
Kuroneko.
I'd like to watch those before the month's out.
Kuroneko is amazing. It was very high on my overall list last year.
So Quite On is 3 hours long, and the first 2 episodes are very slow. The first episode is about it's like called The Black Hair, and it's about this guy who's like with this chick, and he's just like, yeah, I'm moving on, and he's with this other girl. He don't like her, and so then he eventually goes back to the chick, and then okay, spoiler alert for this movie that's from I think the 60s. Yeah, 64. Yeah, the hair attacks him, and it's kind of cheesy. The second one ain't much better. It's about this snow demon thing. Yeah, by the end the snow demon thing lashes out at him after sparing him earlier on because he told her all about all the snow demon, even though he was married to the snow demon. I'm quickly paraphrasing this stuff. The third one's really cool because it talks about so it's this blind guy who plays a guitar, and it's been a while since I've seen this, but basically he plays this Japanese guitar, and he talks about this Japanese folklore stuff, and the ghosts like it so much that they invite him into the ghost dimension to do this for him, and then he gets dragged back. He ends up the only part that's camouflage, that's not camouflage on him, is his ears. So the ghost cut off his ears, and that one was pretty good. And then the last one, what was the last one about? I forget exactly what it is, but there's a pretty cool battle. So it's basically a Japanese ghost story kind of anthology kind of thing. It's really, really long. I like the second and third parts way more than the first and second part. So it took me a few days to get through this. But Quite On. This is from the same director. I think it's Kobayashi, who did what's that movie that I think is quite overrated? That is Harry. Yeah, we're going to probably butt heads whenever we get into those movies one day. What's your number 6?
I already did 6. I did 7 and 6 together because they were basically the same. I'll stop that in the top 5 because, yeah.
Okay. This was my number one for the longest time. Frankenstein from 1931. Like, this was significantly better than Dracula, like, that came out the same year. This Frankenstein story told this way, like, you actually see the Frankenstein monster, like, portrayed in that iconic way for the first time. Don't have a lot of memory about it. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it because it's probably the best portrayal of Frankenstein I've seen, because I read the book and it's really, really melodramatic, and I thought the movie did it just right. So Frankenstein's my number 6.
All right, so number 5, we are going to stay in that Shout Factory box set of Friday the 13th. This is going to be Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, or as we more affectionately call it, Jason's on a Boat. Because they spend most of the movie trying to get to Manhattan. Basically, it's a high school. The people, they either graduated high school or they're about to graduate high school, and they're on like their senior trip, and they're riding up the coast on like a boat to Manhattan. And someone somehow revived Jason in the lake, and he ends up on a boat. Because of course these two kids were on a boat at the start, and they were boning, and she showed her titties, so of course she had to die because it's a Jason movie. And then he gets that boat, and then the next thing you know, he jumps off of that boat into the big boat, and then shenanigans happen with Jason on the boat. And then shenanigans happen with Jason when they're actually in Manhattan, as it were. So yeah, just shenanigans. Jason, more Friday the 13th shenanigans. I mean, you know what it's all about.
Speaking of sex scenes in Friday the 13th, in Part 5, that in the woods lovemaking scene, that was the highlight of that one. And you remember?
I mean, probably. So, Friday the 13th 5 was the first horror movie I watched, and I watched it on like September 30th. I watched like 8 of them. Some of them blend together.
All right, my number 5 is The Omen. So go ahead with your number 4.
My number 4 is The Devil's Backbone from Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
This is my Criterion Collection entry for the list. Spy number 666. But it's in the Guillermo del Toro trilogy box set, the same one with Kronos, which we watched in season 1, and also Pan's Labyrinth. So of course, Guillermo del Toro is talking about what he likes to talk about a bunch: the Spanish Revolution. Basically, this kid gets dropped off at an orphanage. Other than the kids who have been there for a while are like bullying him. And then they find out that another kid had went missing. And then there's this whole take over the orphanage plot to get the gold before the revolution ends. And they were on they backed the losing side, so they have to hide and run. And it goes real downhill real fast. But yeah, no, it is a ghost story. It's very good. Guillermo's movies are very good from what I've seen. I wasn't a big fan of Kronos, but that was early in his career. But the rest of them that I've seen have been really good. I highly recommend it. I don't know if it's on the channel. Like Carl has the Blu-ray from Criterion, so we watched it that way.
Definitely the little stepbrother to Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth, definitely the superior film in that bundle. It's interesting now that you've seen Pan's, you've seen Spirit of the Beehive, and you've seen Devil's Backbone, because they definitely all kind of fall in the same sphere of topic movie making. Yeah. Yes,
and Spirit of the Beehive I also watched this year. That one I did not like near as much as the Guillermo movies. Even though you can definitely tell that
Very
those,
subtle.
yeah, they also very highly influenced him. So
yeah.
But I mean, The Devil's Backbone I think is like a true, just straight horror movie. Whereas like Pan's Labyrinth, like I think it's a horror movie, but it's definitely a dark fantasy movie. It's kind of like you put suspense movies in with horror. Definitely dark fantasy. I mean, The Pale Man is 100% horrifying. So yeah, for sure.
All right, my number 4. This kind of kicked off like really hitting some good horror stuff coming in my top 4 here. So Dawn of the Dead. Finally rewatched this movie, and gosh, this movie makes me so happy. So it could have been like any other, like, have you seen this one?
No, I've only seen Night of the Living Dead. I've not seen any of the other Of Dead movies.
So it could have easily been like these folk, like our heroes, like going from place to place in a helicopter, but no, they stop at a shopping mall, and they hunker down. They cleanse the shopping mall of the dead, and yeah, it's kind of this statement on consumerism in the late 70s. Shoot, it's not even really the age of the mall yet, so Romero really kind of did some premonition work there. Dawn of the Dead is fantastic in terms of just this group of people like dealing with the situation is just fascinating. You have them like, burning time by like setting up a new life for themselves in a shopping mall, and then you have these blue-faced zombies, which are very unthreatening until they're not. This movie gets ridiculously gory, and this is actually the first time I saw it. I don't think I saw it as gory a version as this one, but Dawn of the Dead, the original, quite a good flick, made me quite happy to watch that, and I enjoyed the Zack Snyder one as well. Your number 3.
All right, my number 3 is the culmination of two of the 80s biggest rivals. It took them 20 years to get to this point, and the only good thing about Jason Goes to Hell was Freddy reaching up and grabbing him at the end and pulling him down. Is that seeing that, knowing that Freddy versus Jason exists, going in, like, that was the best part of that movie. I could only imagine having been in theaters or renting it from Blockbuster in the mid 90s, and the Freddy hand coming down. Like, horror fans at that point, there's like Freddy and Jason are still two of the biggest horror icons in pop culture. But even like
how far apart are those two movies?
So Freddy versus Jason is from 2003, and Jason Goes to Hell, the Final Friday, is from 1993. So it took them
a decade to pay off.
Yes, Jason X was actually made before it, but in what I was reading was that Freddy versus Jason actually takes place in the timeline before Jason X, which makes sense since Jason X is well in the future, and Jason X really isn't part of the timeline. But anyway, it is Freddy versus Jason. So you've got the quipping one-liner nightmare machine with his claws, Freddy versus Jason, who doesn't talk. He's just the stereotypical lumbering, big, scary, basically zombie. And there's some kids involved. Jason, Freddy has been forgotten, and he doesn't want to be forgotten anymore. So he brings Jason back to stir fear so he can be remembered. Come to find out, there's the parents from Elm Street have got most of the kids who know about it drugged up so they don't dream, so they don't remember about it. And there's a big hullabaloo. Some cool fight scenes, some cool stuff, and they do leave it, where you think Freddy is dead because he gets fucking decapitated, but then, you see his head wink and, kind of wisecrack, and so they set it up to be another one. I don't think there's gonna be. I think the thing here that was kind of stunning was that this had Kelly Rowland in it, and the whole thing with Destiny's Child was they were not obviously a Christian band or a Christian pop group. They definitely talked about like their Christianity and how good they were and everything, and she's up in there like dropping F-bombs like left and right, which I have no problem with. It was just kind of like, you're so used to seeing her mostly in either in music videos or interviews for her music, so obviously it's being a little more TV friendly, and she's just out there acting like a little thotty, and that's probably not an accurate statement, but she was definitely being kind of a bitch if my memory recalls. So that was interesting as well.
So my number 3 is Halloween Kills.
I've been waiting for this, baby. I've been waiting. Go ahead.
Okay. I was quite happy with this film. So this was the sequel to that other one that I kind of forgot about that I watched earlier in the month. We don't need to worry about how Michael Myers came back. All we need to worry about is what he's going to do next. And those dumbass firefighters unleash him from his little prison, and he wreaks havoc on everything in sight. Totally skewers the firefighters, goes to the next house, totally butchers an interracial couple, butchers some kids, butchers everything in sight. Quite an entertaining, brutal slasher flick. Didn't need to have an ending, didn't need to have a beginning. It just needed to have what you're there to see these fucking movies for. Some fucking awesome slashing action. And that's what you get in this movie. And it even takes it up a notch because, you know, these movies are a little artsier than the original ones. We got the characterization of this town. Where this town, you have these victims of this crime. They come together in a bar and they reminisce about how they survived this, and then they find out that Michael Myers is back. And then the whole town erupts in this, like, we got to kill this guy right now. We got to team up, go after him. They do, but motherfucking Michael Myers is having none of it. And he rises again from the Phoenix, as he always does, and he kicks some ass. And I can't wait to see where Halloween ends, because this one was pretty badass. And I didn't mind Laurie being on the sidelines because she was a little disabled this time. And she really got to sit with the regret that the fact that her plan of all this time did not work. And her daughter ate it because of that. And that's going to probably get pretty salty in her wounds. Your turn.
Before I move on, I am going to rebut you, and I'm going to rebuttal you very hard. So, first off, this is unequivocally, without a doubt, the worst Halloween movie that I have ever fucking seen. Now, we're going to take that with a grain of salt because I haven't seen all of them, so I haven't seen Halloween 3, H2O, Resurrection, the ones that are supposed to be the bottom of the barrel. I've seen the 1978 one, all-time fucking classic, one of the best horror movies ever made, one of the best movies ever made. I've seen the 2018 one, which was leagues, and I do mean leagues, better than this one. And I've seen the zombie remake, also leagues better than Halloween Kills. So first off, badass kills. I will give you that. He fucks those firefighters up. My problem right there was, one, he should have already been dead in the fire. Two, they all have axes and a fucking chainsaw. He's just a man. He's not supernatural. By the end of this movie, he is, which is some straight up bullshit, but he's just a man. These are big, strong, tough firefighters that run into fucking fires for a living. Not one of them. And they just sat there and stood there while he was like, I'm going to kill this one. None of them bum rushed him. No, nothing. They just fucking let it happen. Then, all right, Jamie Lee's on the sidelines. That's cool. She's been in these movies for 100 years. That's fine. Now we've got Anthony Michael Hall. I'm sorry. What the fuck is Anthony Michael Hall going to do to a serial killer? Not a goddamn thing. But, okay, so we go through, he causes a mob, they cause to kill another person, makes him jump out of there. He gets all these other motherfuckers killed. It's just dumb. He creates a mob, it makes, whatever. We're going to go to the end.
But that's how it would really be. People are dumb. Everybody watching this horror movie saying those people are dumb, that's how people would act. Take the COVID pandemic, for instance, with these mobs going everywhere saying, oh, we're not going to take a vaccine. This is how people act. I know people watching horror movies think, I'm smarter than this horror movie. This is how people act.
Yes, inciting a mob, but the whole point of it was stupid. And I love that you have just compared a real-life COVID pandemic with people too afraid to take a shot but try to say they would try to hunt a serial killer. Actually, that's probably accurate since people are stupid. But anywho, we're going to go to the fucking end of this movie. So there is a really cool kill where he stabs a dude he's already stabbed a guy in the eye. Oh, before that, where he
twists his head on the
banister. Yeah,
okay.
so when he shoots homegirl, or by shoots homegirl, I mean she goes to shoot, he hits the door turns the gun around, she shoots herself in the head. That was cool. Dumb as fuck, but cool. I'll give you that. However, this is where I have the problem. Michael Myers is a goddamn man. He is not a fucking zombie like Jason. He is not some dream monster like Freddy. He is a straight up fucking man, an old man at that. He gets jumped by a whole group of people. He gets freaking stabbed. He's been shot multiple times, beaten with a baseball bat. Nope, doesn't care. Gets up, kills everybody because now all of a sudden they can't attack him at the same time. They're still just attacking him one-on-one. Kills all of them, goes back to the house, and then kills the fucking girl that just Jamie Lee's daughter. The ending sucked because then they're all like, they showed like the ghost of his sister and that's who's controlling him. Like, no, bad, horrible, bad. Don't fucking give Peacock your money and watch this. Don't give fucking AMC or Regal or any of them money to watch this. Just fucking skip it. This was bad. And the only reason it wasn't lower on my list is because I watched shitty Jason movies. And that's the only reason it wasn't lower.
Can't bring logic to a horror movie, especially not a slasher movie like this.
But okay, so how we're gonna go to the Scream 5 coming out in January, and all of a sudden Ghostface is a monster who can't be killed instead of a human being in a mask. He's been a human being in a mask. That's who he is. He's not a Well, he's a monster, but he's not a mythological monster or whatever, a supernatural monster. He's a fucking man. Okay? And I get that some of these people have survived some dumb stuff. But like at that point, he's been beaten by the mob. The movie, you've got homeboy is dead over here. Everybody's dead. They kill him. You're gonna move on with your life. No, the only good thing was that he killed Anthony Michael Hall and his dumb ass thinking he was gonna take out a dude with a butcher knife with a baseball bat. That being said,
it's interesting because I mean, you brought up the divide that we kind of had with like The Strangers, where you're more into these movies where it's more realistic, where I think I'm more into the supernatural. Like this whole like idea of Michael Myers being elevated to this unkillable force and me being intrigued by part 3 where they're, supposedly going to kill him has me very intrigued, or has you very turned off. So it's interesting how like our different mindsets on these things collide around this movie.
See, if he had been supernatural from the start, that is one thing, but he's been a man, just a man. And maybe somewhere in one of those really shitty sequels that I haven't seen, he is elevated beyond that, but not from my understanding. My understanding, he is a man. And at this point, we're in a separate timeline where they started over, and so he's still just a man, even because these movies are erasing H2O and Resurrection and all that, so they wouldn't even matter. But I've said my piece. I've been waiting a couple of weeks now to have this conversation with you. I will move to number 2, and I will talk about a supernatural murderer.
Solid spiritual debate.
Yes,
I appreciate it.
I will talk. Of course. It wouldn't be any fun if we just agreed all the time and sung Kumbaya. So my number 2, we are going to talk about supernatural killer, and this is the Friday the 13th remake from 2009, which I think is the best movie in the franchise, even over the OG. So you got a bunch of people who were not quite big yet. You got Jared Padalecki. I think at this point he had already started Supernatural, but it was not the cult phenomenon that it would become. You have Danielle Panabaker, who was in a couple of other horror movies around that time period, but also is known as Lady Frost in The Flash and that whole DC WB universe. Also got Willa Ford in this movie. You got a kid who had been in Veronica Mars. And Amanda Rigetti, who was also like an up-and-coming star around that time. They do some really cool stuff, like how they show Jason getting around the island. Like it seems like he's at instant speed. Well, he's got underground tunnels. But the same thing, kids partying, having sex, get killed, go about their day. Dude catches a bow and arrow through the eye, which then causes him to run over Willa Ford, who is naked in the lake with the boat, and killing her. So yeah, there was some good stuff in there. I did not like that they killed Danielle Panabaker at the end. I guess you can't have two final girls, but it is what it is. Um, I mean, I think you don't even need to really see the other ones. You just, if you have any sort of base knowledge about Jason, you're there. So yeah, that's my number 2.
My number 2 was a rewatch. It's the Blair Witch Project. Saw this a few nights ago. Had just gotten back from a outing at a scout camp, and yeah, this was way better than I remember it being. I hadn't seen it probably since I was in high school. I saw it back in the theater, back when people actually thought this shit was real. And it really dawned on me this time that this movie is all about failure. Because it's about this girl who drags these two guys in the woods, and they do whatever she wants, but she gets them hopelessly lost looking for this these items for this documentary of the Blair Witch. And that's really where the horror of this movie comes in, because that monologue of her in the tent, like with the camera facing her or whatever, is just brilliant with how visceral like it feels, with like the fear coming out of her of like, I have no idea how to get out of the situation, and I have no idea what to do, and I'm hearing these creepy things in the woods, and yeah, I'm sorry, that's what she has to say. And that part was so chilling. I mean, if you come into this movie really expecting some witchcraft like to the max, you're going to be disappointed, unfortunately. From a filmmaking aspect, it's really cool. This movie utilizes like a film camera, which is black and white, and also a digital camera, which is color. So I noticed that a lot this time, to where they're switching back and forth, and they're actually like interacting between themselves. Like, oh, this is really cool. You need to get the 16 millimeter to get this and stuff. And it's just awesome to see these people break down, and then one of them disappears, and they see some weird shit in the woods, and just things melt down from there. But the Blair Witch Project is truly stands up as a definitive, this is where the found footage horror movie really stood its ground and set up for 20 years of imitators. I know Cannibal Holocaust came way before that, but Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, great found footage movies.
So my number 2 was also a rewatch. So I think that was interesting. I've actually not seen Blair Witch Project, but you're talking about, back when people thought it was real. I remember watching like a documentary about it on like Discover Channel or something, and they presented it as a real thing. So yeah, people thought that shit was real, like actual real found footage. Because there was a big scandal when it was like, oh no, none of this is real. It was like a big deal in the late 90s, early 2000s. So at some point I'll check that one out. All right, so numero uno, the creamiest of the cream of the crop. So this is a 2007 French film called Inside, which is currently on the Criterion channel. It's not in the collection, but it is on the channel. Actually, this spot was supposed to be Us, but I didn't feel like spending the money. Let me rephrase. I didn't have the money to spend to rent it, and this was free. So Carl had already seen it, said it was great, and I.
So you did watch Us?
No, I didn't. I didn't have the $4. I didn't spend the $4 to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah. So and this was free. So I just replaced it. I have Us on the 2022 list. So either I'll watch it next year or sometime during the year. I may even have to talk to my boy Johnny about it, but we'll get it taken care of. Yeah. But Inside. So movie's in French, so gotta have subtitles. Whatever, deal with it, or no French, I guess. But you start the movie off, and there's this car crash, and the woman driving one of the cars is very pregnant, very pregnant. And then like she's very injured. The guy next to her, which I assume is her husband, is dead. You never really see the other car. Like you see the outside of them, but they don't show you the people inside or anything. You fast forward a little ways, you can tell it's the same girl. She's got some scars on her face from being all cut up, and it's Christmas Eve. They let you know that they're going to induce her on Christmas Day. You know, hey, is anybody going to bring you? Yes, my editor is going to bring me. And I guess her mom thinks that they're dating, or maybe they are dating or something. That part's left very vague. Anyway, she goes home. She's, just kind of chillaxing, and this person knocks on the door. Hey, can I, my car broke down. Can I use your phone? She's like, use your cell phone. She's like, it's dead. She's like, go to any of the other houses on the block. She's like, come on. And she's like, oh, look, my husband works early in the morning. Please come back. And then, she repeats it a couple times, and she's like, look, Sarah. She uses the girl's name, Sarah. Your husband is not asleep. He's dead. And then it just she calls the cops. The cops come out. They're like, we'll check back later. And, she locks her doors and doesn't really think any more of it too much. And, she's freaked out, goes to bed. And then the woman's in the house. And she's kind of walking around, and she's looking at Sarah sleeping. And then she goes into the nursery, and she looks at like some clothes and stuff and like throws them around or whatever. And then she goes to the bathroom, and she gets one of those big steel scissors, like this big silver one. So it's not just like a pair used to like cut paper and stuff with. And she gets some antiseptic. And then she like rubs some of it on the around her belly button and stabs her in the belly button with the scissors, which of course wakes Sarah up. And next is her fighting for her life. She's trapped in the bathroom for a while. Her editor comes over, and Sarah, acts like she's her mother because her editor's never met the mother. Her mother's never met her, and she's about to get away with it until her mom actually shows up. So at this point, Sarah knows that the girl's been away for a while, so she walks out of the bathroom, and as she opens the door, Sarah's mom has walked by, and she just reacts and stabs her through the neck with some sort of wood, looks that she had like that was in the bathroom. Freaks out because she killed her mom, and at this point, her editor gets killed, and then she gets trapped back in the bathroom. At some point, she gets stabbed through her hand. There's cops show up. They get fucking obliterated, at least slaughtered. But it's just terrifying how methodic this woman is. The very end of the movie is some of the most gruesome stuff that I have seen. But again, it's a home invasion movie. It is a thing that is set in realism, and I find that way more horrifying than any Jason or Freddy ever could be. And I definitely think it's worth watching, especially if you have the Criterion channel. I definitely, before it leaves, because it doesn't have we looked it up. It doesn't have a physical release with English subs. You can import it, but it doesn't have English subs. So.
Do you know what my number one is?
I for a minute thought it was going to be Halloween Kills. I haven't looked at your list, so
I watched my number one last night.
Last night? Did I comment on it already?
I don't think so. My number one is Inside.
Oh, boy, I didn't think I was going to get you to watch that movie.
Yeah, what did I finish with? I finished with something. No, let's see, what did I finish with? The Omen. I watched The Omen and Inside back to back. Oh boy, The Inside. Visceral, bloody, brutality, torture porn. And it was brilliant. What really got me was that scene where like you see the La Femme's face or whatever, and it starts like doing all this jerky like editing stuff, and I mean it's already unsettling because there's blood fucking everywhere. But it cranks it up a notch with seeing her. And then did you notice the part where like the sound gets really creepy with like it like blaring in one side and blaring in the other, all that nonsense? Gosh, this movie amps it up. It shot to number 2 on my cringeworthy bucket list because, oh my god, can you just imagine a pair of fucking scissors like just going at a pregnant belly. And okay, so let's think about this now. So like a pregnant woman is pretty much one of the most sacred things in like our culture, and we treat these women with delicacy and care. And this movie throws all that out the window because she's going to get the shit beat out of her in all sorts of ways. And it is disturbing and it is visceral. And I loved it to pieces, even though it's so fucked up. She's covered with blood. This movie don't have a happy ending, but I kind of appreciate even more for that. I gave it a whole fuck yeah whenever she torches this fucking lady's face halfway through the movie.
Like she torches their face, and you're like, okay, this is she's come back, she's won, we're done, this movie is over, and there's still more. Boy howdy, man, it rips every piece of you out. Holy shit.
This fucking cop, because the cops show up and they figure it out, so you think, hey, we're in the clear now, these cops are gonna knock this antagonist woman out. And no sir, she's gonna blow one of their heads off and slit one of their throats, I think she did. And oh geez, La Femme is ruthless. And we actually find out that, like the scene that Joey had described at the beginning of this car accident, La Femme's in the other car, spoiler alert, and she loses her baby. And it's ambiguous to whose fault is this car accident. But La Femme is dead set that, it was Sarah, I believe her name is, fault. Hoy vey. This movie is... I thought Martyrs was French extremism. I mean, it's really, really extreme. But inside, I think it takes it up a notch, because everyone's covered in blood in this. It's viscerally just unnerving with how horrific this gets. I mean, as you're watching, just be like, hey, is it going to go to the worst case scenario? Yeah, it's going to go there and past. And inside was thrilling. It was just grotesque. And I guess I'm fucked up because it was right up my alley.
Dude, that movie, it is fucked up. It is gruesome. It is not for the faint of heart, but it's made so swell. Like you said, torture porn. And I feel like torture porn, there's nothing to it other than the torture, like the second half of, what's that Eli Roth movie? Hostel, or, something like that, where it's just torture. And it's like, yeah, this was torturing, but there was reasoning, even no matter how skewed it was, there was reasoning behind it. It's, oh man, don't watch that if you want to be happy. But if you want a really, really good film that is going to, is going to scare you, it's going to put you on the edge of your seat, and it's not like I said earlier, it's a home invasion. It's a woman, and this could really happen. She's suffering essentially postpartum depression, and she blames this other woman, and she uses all this time to find out this information, and then just goes and tries to kill her and take
this lady. This lady lurking in the shadows is probably twice as scary as Michael Myers ever has been lurking in the shadows. And typically, when somebody induces their own tracheotomy, that's going to be the most disturbing part of the movie. No, not an inside.
No,
it's just
scraping
the iceberg.
I wasn't even thinking about saying that until you said it. I was like, oh yeah, that did happen. No, all I have is the end, like that visceral, that scene at the end. Boy.
I've seen 3 C-sections, and this movie rattled me. All right. Well, we have a movie to talk about, which I liked, and Joey probably didn't. And we'll talk about it after the break. See you then.
Boy, I cannot believe I didn't think you were going to watch it. Oh, man. Look at me giving you a French movie to watch and you liking it.
When the Jews return to Zion, and the comet rips the sky, and the Holy Roman Empire rises, then you and I must die. From the eternal sea he rises, creating armies on either shore, turning man against his brother till man exists no more. Look at me, Damien. It's all for you. All right, so we're talking about our feature movie this Halloween season, our third annual. It's The Omen. So the synopsis, courtesy of the old IMDb: mysterious deaths surround an American ambassador to Great Britain. Could the child that he has been raising be the Antichrist? The devil's own son? We'll talk about it. All right, so Joey, next time I recommend that we watch a religious horror movie, remind me quite nicely that, Justin, these movies do nothing for me, apparently, right?
They don't, because I'm not a religious person. So the whole thing of being scared, oh, the Antichrist is coming back, or we got to do an exorcism because there's a demon inside of this person. Those some of those are fine, but like just the whole, it's Satan's coming. Just you can't see this because obviously we're a podcast and not on camera, but I'm giving the old jerk motion, like it's just whatever.
But I mean, aspects of this are pretty freaky, right?
It's just a kid. Knee him in the face. You're done.
But the kid only does one thing. It's the supernatural element that's doing most of the shenanigans.
That is him. He's the one doing it.
No, it's his father, the devil. All right, let's get into it.
Oh, sorry. I have a flashback. Back to Halloween Kills. Because in your review, you said that movie was the Empire Strikes Back of horror movies, insinuating that it is the greatest horror movie of all time.
That's not really what I was getting at, but I was getting at the fact that open beginning, open ending kind of thing. Okay. As I consume the reaction to that movie, it's much more of The Last Jedi of the horror. But to the Omen we go.
I would say that I'll agree with because of how polarizing it is, because it's either loved, i.e. you, or hated, i.e. me. But anyway, right. Back to the Omen.
So this was my third time watching this guy, and yeah, I haven't seen any of the sequels yet. I might have seen the remake. I think I did, because I ended up watching, they had the best moments of both of them back to back on YouTube, which is pretty interesting to watch. I was counting on this being on Peacock, but it ended up being on AMC on demand, which caused there to be commercials and some slight editing, which I quite regret. How did you watch this?
So hold on. So it was on the AMC streaming service, but it's still basically like watching AMC on television, is what it sounds like.
Basically, yeah. So it ended up being the cable version. I only saw one difference. We'll get there.
I do believe that I hit up our friend Johnny for this movie.
Oh, okay. Johnny. Good guy.
Yeah, good guy, Johnny, because it wasn't on anything that we had to stream that I remember. Yeah, that sounds right.
So the whole aspect of the ambassador getting Damien at the beginning was a little fuzzy. When I zoned into what was going on in the movie, he was just being handed this kid and being like, hey, raise him and tell your wife this is your baby or whatever. So if there was any aspect of being yeah, your actual son didn't make it, I might have missed that. Did I miss that?
Yeah, so basically he's talking to the priest. The ambassador's talking to the priest, and he's like, she wouldn't be able to handle it. I can't tell her that her kid's dead. It's basically, they insinuated that the kid was stillborn, and then the priest was like, "Hey, we've got this baby. It has no family. It even looks kind of like your kid. Um, you'll do two good things. The kid will have a home, and your wife will have the baby. Blah blah blah." So he kind of seems against it a little bit. Just kind of hesitant because that's a whole weird situation. But
He's hesitant about everything. He's a
Yes.
politician.
And then he decided to do it, and thus we have the movie.
Yeah. So yeah, he finds out he is the ambassador to Great Britain. So him and his wife Catherine move over there. There's a lot of them walking through the countryside with jolly little Damien. It reminded me a lot of Don't Look Now. I was hoping Carl was going to be on this show. I'm not sure if she's seen Don't Look Now before, but that'll be an interesting movie to talk about with you one day. I'm assuming you haven't seen it?
I have not.
Okay. Things get interesting when Damien has this extravagant birthday party. They would deliver like a carousel out in the middle of his front yard, and clowns and animals, and yeah, his nanny is pretty hung up on him, and this dog appears and barks at her, and she thinks that she needs to hang herself from an upper window in the house for Damien, because it's all for him. And yeah, pretty freaky moment, I think.
I mean, it would definitely be freaky in real life. It was just kind of like, oh, this woman jumped out of a window. Okay.
All right, so this makes the agency, the AKA Devil Nanny Agency, send in a new recruit. All right, this is about the time when we get this crazed priest who confronts the ambassador and basically tells him the whole situation in the worst possible way, because he's being, hysterical about it. So obviously the guy's not going to hear him out or anything. So to dive into that aspect, so from your understanding, the priest also had the 666 mark, right?
Yes, he had it on his inner thigh or something.
And so I guess he was fighting against the fact that I guess he was the chosen one of the devil by becoming a priest, and I guess he was ridden with cancer, and he had Bible pages all over his walls, and crucifixes all over his room or whatever, because he was fighting against his destiny as the devil. And yeah, he gets skewered by a pole from the top of a church after a windstorm. So freaky moment, right? Freaky. It's freaky.
Yeah, it's real freaky. It's the devil taking out a thing in his way. So freaky. Ooh.
All right, so this brings us to the nosy photographer. He's getting into the mix. He's like, hey, can I take a picture? So that happens a bunch of times. And so his photographs basically telegraph that a couple people are going to die, because he sees so for the nanny who hangs herself, he sees a little shadowy line that insinuates the rope, and then he sees a line on the priest when he gets skewered by the pole, and then he sees something kind of heading towards his head there in his photo. So yeah, Catherine, by this point, she is very kind of disturbed with her relationship with her son. She demands to see a shrink to be advised on the matter. She ends up being pregnant.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And some of this was caused because they went to go to a wedding or something, and the nanny's like, no, we're not going to take him. And then the mom's like, no, we're going to take him. And they get right up to the church, and Damien starts freaking out, punches her. And then she takes him to this drive-in zoo kind of thing, and all the baboons start attacking the car, trying to get to him, and yeah, so she starts getting freaked out a little bit.
It's freaky. Yeah, so Catherine pretty unsettled by Damien in general. Now this is the part that the kid actually does. So he's riding around in a circle in his pre-shining kind of tricycle deal.
Yep. Oh no, that's definitely what that scene reminded me of. I was like, we're in The Shining now, boys.
Yep. So then the devil nanny releases him, and he zooms by his mom, who's messing with this plant thing, and she trips over and grab it on the railings, and yeah, he don't give a shit. Not like he could really pull her up anyways, and in a kind of cheesy effect, she falls a story down and loses the baby and gets hospitalized.
Concussion, fucked up leg, fucked up arm.
Yeah, definitely hospitalized. Yeah, so let's see here. And I guess this kind of clues the ambassador in because he's talking to the shrink and he's just like, yeah, she's pregnant. And then, yeah, she instantly loses the baby, which I guess was foretold by, I guess, the priest or whatever.
Yeah, and they're like outside meeting. He's like, he'll kill the baby and then he'll kill her. And he's like, what baby are you fucking talking about, man? And then we find out.
Yep, Satan Nanny shows up at the hospital, throws her ass out a window, and yeah, she's toast. It's really interesting. I would recommend you check out the YouTube Omen original versus like the remake side by side, and like the cast for like the remake is really, really interesting. I would definitely recommend you checking that out. All right. So meantime, let's see. The ambassador, he knows the shit's finally real. So he goes down to Rome to see what the fuck's going on, get some answers. He finds out that, so he finds, like, I guess the priest that talked him into this shit to begin with is like, he's all fucked up. So he like guides him to the cemetery. He goes and checks that out. The grave that this original mother in is like, has some dead dog in it. And the grave right beside it has his dead son in it. And then they see these very mean doggies. And so they got to get the fuck out of there as soon as they can because these doggies are not happy because they must be possessed by the devil and they run them out of there. They see this other guy and he explains this whole thing about like you got to stab Damien on like a religious altar or whatever. So yeah, that's got to happen. The ambassador ends up whining about this and like throwing away the knives. And the photographer's like, hey, my ass is on the line too because my picture foreshadowed my death. I'll hand this over to you because I know you're a fan of this part.
This is easily the best scene in the whole movie. So he goes and like he's picking up the knives that the ambassador has chucked, and he's at like the bottom of a hill. I mean, he's on a road, but it's at the bottom of a hill. And this person gets out of, it's a truck carrying plate glass. And I guess they don't set the parking brake or it gives out. And it starts rolling down the street. And then like it hits something to stop it. And it slams a piece of glass on it. And at the last second, the photographer hears it, sticks his head up just in time for the piece of glass to go through and decapitate the living shit out of him. Easily the best scene in the whole movie. Just, yeah.
This scene on AMC is quite weak. It skips the whole like actual cutting and just kind of cuts to after the fact. So I knew what this scene was all about. So I went ahead and flipped to YouTube, and that's where I saw that whole comparison video. And yeah, this scene is quite unsettling. Pretty badass with the head flipping up and all kinds of stuff there. So, yeah, the ambassador, he heads back to his home, locks the devil dog down in the basement, I think stabs the nanny devil lady in the face, rushes Damien to the church, but apparently he ignores a very crucial traffic stop because the cops chase him all the way to the church. And when he goes to stab Damien, they shoot him down! Sorry, ambassador, you're dead. And apparently the president of the United States adopts this poor young man who happens to be the son of the devil because politics is the way to all evil, apparently, in this movie, right?
And in real life, but yes.
Yeah, so when I first saw this movie, like, my threshold for scares was The Exorcist, so it was quite high. So when I first saw this movie, it was quite cheesy. But since then, I've seen how a lot of movies are quite more cheesy than this. So I was actually a lot more impressed with the scares here. I mean, you have the lady getting hanged out the window. You got the guy getting skewered by the pole. You got the guy getting decapitated. So, I mean, this has some legitimate scares in it. I mean, this is the director from Superman. He did a pretty solid job with this material. So, I find all those parts thrilling. I find it surprising how you, like, you know, you really focus on the fact that, like, the devil's out to take over the world. When this is, like the first, like, baby step. Because, like, at the end of this, Damien's, like, been adopted by the president of the United States and smiling at the camera, because I guess there's a couple sequels ahead before, you know, he can do any real damage. Yeah, I don't find it really scary, but there's definitely some eerie moments for me. I enjoy it on those and at that respect. And yeah, I should probably give those other Damien movies a look sooner than later. I think dude from Jurassic Park, what's his name?
Sam Neill.
Yeah, Sam Neill plays, I think, the Antichrist in part 3, so that probably would be worth a watch, right?
Possibly, especially if you're into that kind of thing.
Any final words on the Omen, Joey?
It's definitely not like a bad movie by any. It just doesn't do anything for me, like, at all. And I gave it a 2.5 out of 5.
I haven't read my review on it yet. It'd probably be in the 4 territory for me. It's not great, but it definitely has some good moments, some good storytelling. You were saying that it was 20 minutes too long, right? What 20 minutes would you shave off exactly? I guess him finding out how to kill Damien, because it's pretty obvious that you stabbed the kid, right?
I mean, he has to him and haw, like, over every decision. Like, it just should have, like, it took, like, I don't know, like, it was just 20 minutes too long. Like, most horror movies should be an hour and a half. This one should have been an hour and a half. I still don't think it would have been a lot better, but it was like, okay, all right, here's another decision. Okay, do I not? I don't know what to do. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's another one. Blah, blah, blah.
All right.
So,
well, at least we got a pretty good assessment on Inside, right?
yes, that would have been a much better episode. I think we could have talked about that for a hot minute. Although,
we did.
Yes, except for you, it's a movie where you want to try to be vague and not give a ton of stuff away, and you're all like, "Here's the end. This happens," and I'm like, "No." Let people be surprised, like an audition.
Which movie are you referring to?
Inside.
Oh, I didn't really.
Anyway.
I didn't really spoil that, did I?
We didn't talk about the in details the very specific thing that happens at the end, but you made a reference to something that's similar, that kind of gives it away, and we talked about some of the stuff at the end. So,
Fair enough.
It's okay. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us. And coming up next week, I'll be doing another episode of I've Always Wanted to Watch This with our friend of the show, Ben. We're going to be doing Richard Donner's Lady Hawk. That's who's in that movie? Ferris Bueller. That's
Matthew Broderick
movie. We'll be doing that. And Joey's got a lot of schlock talk coming up. He'll tell you about that in a second. But keep an eye out on the Cinematic Underdogs feed. Joey and I guest hosted on that with Paul. And about our favorite sports movies.
that was a good time. I'm really looking forward to seeing the finished, or I guess hearing the finished product, and I hope you guys do as well. And then, as Justin mentioned, I do have episode 3 is already recorded. It's waiting to premiere on Sunday, October 31st, aka Halloween. Should be at 10 a.m. on YouTube, and should be shortly thereafter on all the streaming platforms. It just takes a little while to get from Buzzsprout to them. I'm also recording the episode after that for November the 14th with my friend Rosa, who I believe I've talked about before on here. She's going to come in. We're going to, just as a preview, we're going to talk about Leprechaun.
How many of those movies are there?
There are 7 of them.
Damn!
And she originally wanted to, like, we were talking about potential movies, and she listed Leprechaun 4, and I was like, well, I've never seen any of them. And I had just conveniently bought all 7 of them for $10 on Blu-ray at Walmart. So we decided to go with that one. I'm going to have another episode back with Carl on Thanksgiving Day is when I want that one to come out. So just something to listen to while you're driving and what have you. It'll be Thanksgiving themed, so got that planned out. And then I'm going to have my boy here, Justin, on in early December. We're going to break away from the horror movies, so be on the lookout for that as well. And then also, hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll be actually getting back to the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast, and we'll be doing season 3, ep 11. It's been a long time since the last main episode, but we didn't want to break up, and stop watching horror movies to do a Western and a boxing movie. But we'll be doing a Silverado from the mid-'80s and David O. Russell's The Fighter from early 2010s, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark. So a lot of big stuff coming. Hopefully you guys all enjoy it all. And Justin, if they want to talk to us about all of these cool things we got coming up, how do they do that?
Man, just email the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast at gmail.com. We will answer anything that comes our way. Joey, what do we do? This shenanigans we call movie reviewing / arguing / just shenanigans online.
Because we love talking about movies.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Skull.